Good morning. I am Doris Green, owner of Lantern Dancer, located in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. We specialize in contemporary southwestern jewelry, and we are privileged to have some Native American art today. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Oreland Joe. He's internationally known sculptor and painter, and we are looking at a painting today that tells a story, and I'd like for him to talk about it. Oreland?
Yes, this painting is called Beadway Chant, and has to do with the eagle and medicine man and really a practitioner. And as I've heard and did some study on this ceremony actually was part of the Pueblo culture too. But at one time, way back in time, there was a Navajo boy, a skinny Navajo boy, that was stolen by the Pueblo people. And so they feed him, but they give him the scraps. They have him sleep with the dogs and just treated him as a house cleaner and just didn't really care. He was basically a slave. And so one day, two of the adolescent Pueblo boys were on their way home, southward, going home, and they saw this image up in the sky. And they looked up at the sun, and just too bright, you know, and so they waited a little bit, and they noticed this large bird was soaring up above, and it would come frequently as they were traveling home. And so they told us, well, let me back up. The older boy said, well, you know, we want to know what that bird was, and so they made an X figure with some sticks on the ground, and so they positioned themselves to where when they came back, when they looked through the sticks, they could actually see where that large bird landed. And so they left the sticks there, they went home, they told the older men, they had a council that night, and they said, we want to know what this bird is. And there was one fellow that was just sitting there quiet, and he heard the whole conversation. And the other men didn't know what it was. You know, could it be a monster bird? Could it be something that they'd never seen? And finally, the gentleman that was quiet, he said, I know what it is. It's an eagle, you know, in their language. And they said, let's go back over there. And so the whole troop left the next morning, including the boys. And so the boys showed them the X for and so they looked through there, and the man that was quiet said, yeah, that's probably an eagle. And so they went home, and they just had another council, and they decided they would go there. And the man that was quiet had this idea already, and he knew about eagles. He just didn't say anything, and he already preconceived. He already thought, well, if that's an eagle, there's probably some little ones somewhere. So his intent silently was to go back over there, have somebody climb up, get the two eagles, take them back and raise them, and they use the feathers for ceremonial purposes. But as they looked around, everybody just shied away, and they were afraid because it hadn't been done before. And so they would ask who was willing to climb up to that nest. And no one, everybody shied away or had an excuse. And one of the men said, what about the skinny Navajo boy? You know, he's not worth anything, you know.
Underfed.
Yeah, underfed, and so why, it wouldn't be any loss to us. So that evening they took the boy in, they fed him well, he was full, they told him you can sleep in our home by the fire. And he was wondering what was going on too. And so after a while they explained to him that you're going to climb up to the eagle's nest and give us those birds. So the next morning they all, and I can envision them walking up into the canyons and climbing until they got to the eagle nest. And so when he got there, because it was so far down, he wondered about falling or what would save him, and he realized that they took him up there, and he finally thought to himself, I'm being used as a tool. So he got to the nest, and sure enough, there was two little eagles in there. And if you've ever seen an eagle's nest, it's pretty huge. So he sat himself there, and he just wandered. He just wandered, and he began to hear yelling at the bottom of the canyons, saying, "Throw down the birds! Throw the birds down! Throw the birds down!" And he just ignored, sat there, and then finally a voice came, a wind voice, and they said, "No, don't do it. Don't do it." So he sat there till evening came. There was still cussing and cursing going on because it was quite a while. So he spent the night there in the nest, and the next day there was these huge shadows that came around over and over, and the bird sat down and spoke to him, and he said, "What are you doing with my children?" The eagle spoke to him, and he says, "Those people wanted me to throw the birds down." He says, "But I didn't. I listened to the voice." And so the eagle took off again, and then two of them came back, the male and the female, and they said, "Because you didn't throw our children down, we're going to bless you." And they took off, and it took a whole day again. And night came, and the temperatures were a little cold, so the two eagles huddled up to him that evening and kept him warm throughout the night. And the birds would bring food and rabbits and things, and he would eat with the eagles. So after 4 days, they said this eagle came back. It was a bigger eagle, and the two adult eagles told him to jump. But he says, "No, I'm going to die," and they convinced him to jump. So he jumped, and this bird, King Eagle, took him, and they said he just started rising. Pretty soon the earth was just small, I guess. So they came to a world that was full of pebble people, where we've got different color skin, but I guess there they were turquoise people, red people, yellow people, white people, all dressed traditionally, but their skin was primary colors. And so they accepted him there, this boy, and so they fed him, and they told him to come in, learn some songs, some prayers and chants. And so it was a period, I guess, I don't know how long, but nevertheless he grew a couple of inches. And so finally one day they said, "It's time to go home. You learn some songs, you learn some chants. It's time to go home, share it with the people." So at the same time, the bird took him back down and dropped him off at the edge of the village. And he began walking, and he had a bow and an arrow with him too. So he began walking into the village, and the people just looked at him like, "That boy looks familiar, but he's more stocky, he's more built, well-fed." And finally, he went straight to the headman and said, "This is who I am, and I'm the boy that you sent up to get the eagles." And he says, I've come to share with you some ceremonies, but I need certain shells." And so they started asking the people, "Bring in your shells. This ceremony needs a shell." So they would bring small shells, and he would say, "No, I need bigger ones. I need larger ones." And there's another old man just sitting there, listening. Finally, the sun was about to go down, and so he finally got it. He says, I have what you need." So he went back and got a huge shell, and then another one. So I think I know what you have to. So he had these two large shells, and he tied the larger one here like a breastplate, and then he tied the other one in the back. And he also said, I need some shells because the Pueblo people are known for making beads. Navajos don't make beads. It's the Pueblo people, so they gave him some beads too. And so that's why you have the symbolic representations here. So he gathered the people. They wanted to see what kind of songs he was singing, so he sang some songs. And the older men began to look at each other like, where did you get those songs? Those are our songs. And what happened was the boy, while he was in the spirit world or at this other dimension, he had learned the songs. And so the Pueblos said that we have to kill him. He's Navajo, he can't have those songs. So as they were planning that, the boy already had the shells, he already had the beads, he had the eagle feathers, and just as they were about to kill him, he rose and he just ascended. He ascended
into heaven, huh?
And he turned into a bird, an eagle. So that's
this is the boy.
This is the boy.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the story behind that. And yeah, he's a pretty serious guy, you know, because you don't really mess with eagle chanters. They're kind of on the level of they're highly respected. And of course, you have your corn pollen bag here, a little imagination of the power that corn has, and also, of course, you've got to have the eagle feather. Again, a little magic going on here. So it's very simple in description, but it has a lot to do when this person is connected. And then you have the four direction symbols here: the white, the turquoise, the yellow, and the black. And then the blessing of that is right here on top of his head. And some of the southwestern tribes, they say that, you know, this area is important here above you, right on the shoulder and the head. So there's representations of that too. So that's really the story of this painting. Just a lot of thinking, a lot of research, hearing songs, and being a part of ceremonies. So like I say, it's my interpretation of songs and stories, and other artists may have other interpretations, but it's a visual record of what I heard and what I searched for.
Thanks, Oreland. Oreland is also a musician, although I've not heard you yet. But we look forward to that. You can see Oreland's paintings in our store in Pagosa Springs, Lantern Dancer, located in River Center, or you can see it on the web. He has other paintings here, so we welcome you to come by. Thanks, Oreland.
Thank you.